Hat tip to the state of Illinois, who has done something that I have actually never seen before. And I'm not alone. I contacted a handful of attorneys who sue the government professionally. None of them, and they contacted their friends. No one has ever seen a state do what Illinois is trying to do. Guys, let's get into it. So what the heck am I talking about? So back on January 10th of 2023, Illinois, of course, passed their Protect Illinois Communities Act, PICA, which is effectively a so-called assault weapon ban that bans approximately 170 types of semi-automatic firearms, plus magazines and other accessories. Now, of course, Illinois was quickly sued, and ultimately we wound up doing a video about the fact that in the Southern District Court, that's the federal court in Illinois, a judge granted what's called a preliminary injunction, meaning the judge pressed pause on the law. It was not enforceable. That pause, that injunction, lasted for all of about 6 days until the state of Illinois appealed that injunction to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. That's the federal circuit court that sits between the federal district court, that's the federal trial court, 7th Circuit Court, U.S. Supreme Court. Those are kind of the three layers that we're looking at there. Until the 7th Circuit Court lifted that stay, or rather they stayed the injunction, if you want to be a little bit more precise about this. And as a result, the injunction was off. During the 6 days when the injunction was on, you had what my friends in Illinois called Freedom Week, where they thought at any rate, lawfully purchase the items that had been banned under the Protect Illinois Communities Act. So all those firearms, magazines, and accessories. And then the few days after the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals stayed the injunction, Illinois law enforcement came out and said this: the magazines, the firearms, all the stuff that would have been illegal under PICA that was purchased during Freedom Week, all of that is illegal. There's no grandfathering provision as there are in many other areas if you owned the items prior to January 10th. The firearms and accessories purchased during Freedom Week, no go, all illegal, according to Illinois law enforcement. Now, I need to stress when I say Illinois law enforcement, I'm not talking about all law enforcement. There's, of course, has been a groundswell support of sheriffs, the vast majority of whom in the state of Illinois have said that they're not going to be supporting this. They're not going to be enforcing this. So I'm being very specific. I'm going to put a link down to the individual, which I believe is the head of the state patrol or something like that. And I'm sure, of course, the AG's office, the DOJ in Illinois will back that up. But to my knowledge, I haven't said anything yet at this time. So I'll keep you updated on that. Let me know if you want me to follow this thread in the comment field below. But they're saying that all this stuff is illegal that you purchased during Freedom Week. And by the way, when I say illegal, I want to be specific about what we're talking about. If you are possessing a banned magazine, it's what's called a petty offense in Illinois, subject to a $1,000 fine per infraction. However, if you're in possession of a prohibited firearm, one of those 170 banned classes of weapons, you're now looking at what's called a Class 2 felony. Now, I do not speak Illinois, but Google does. A Class 2 felony, because I have no meaning. I mean, Wisconsin, I'm a former state criminal prosecutor in Wisconsin. We use an entirely different system of classifying felonies, all that kind of stuff. So when you say a Class 2 felony, like what kind of stuff is a Class 2 felony, right? You know, arson, aggravated sexual assault, aggravated domestic battery, burglary, dealing drugs, robbery, kidnapping, as well as cheering for Wisconsin sports teams. These are all Class 2 felonies in the state of Illinois, as well as possessing a banned firearm. But this gets better, and we're going to be getting to some possible defenses here at the end, so stick around. Apparently, under the Illinois law, you need to sign an affidavit by January 1st of 2024 saying that you were in possession of all these prohibited weapons that were grandfathered in prior to the enactment of the Protect Illinois Communities Act. Fifth Amendment violation much? Don't worry, we're going to get into that. So you have to sign an affidavit saying this. So what the Illinois police are saying is, look, because the law is worded as saying that you have to be in possession of these items prior to the enactment on January 10th, then if you purchased it during Freedom Week, you're not in compliance with the law. Ergo, done. Of course, this absolutely seems to be flying in the face of what the Southern District Court, a federal court, said in Illinois. Illinois is giving absolutely no weight whatsoever to a ruling by a federal court judge. Why? They didn't like the ruling. And as a result, they're making a taking with zero form of any kind of compensation whatsoever. And I'm not suggesting that that's what they ought to do here, but with zero form of any kind of compensation for all the folks who bought these items during Freedom Week, lawfully, I would add, at least from my perspective, because apparently Illinois, and it's curious how they worded this. They didn't say that the purchase of the items was illegal. They're simply saying that the possession of those items is illegal, which seems to be, to me, a tacit acknowledgement of the fact that, look, you know what? The purchase was lawful, and we can't say anything about that. So we're going to focus on the possession because that's what the law speaks to. My office, even though I have to be emphatically clear, I'm not licensed to practice law in Illinois. I'm only commenting on this for educational purposes, okay? My office has been getting flooded with phone calls from folks who have been asking me questions about what the heck are we supposed to do. There's obviously a Second Amendment issue here. There's a Fifth Amendment issue here because we got the self-incrimination as it comes to the affidavit. But I really want to kind of set those issues aside for a moment. I want to focus on two things because I don't want to make this a 10-hour long video. I want to focus on the rule of lenity as well as ex post facto punishment. The rule of lenity is very simple. You've seen me talk about this in other videos. The U.S. Supreme Court has integrated into their rulings any number of times. Lenity is lenity. The rule of lenity says this: we do not want tyranny in the United States. Tyranny bad, freedom good. So one of the ways that if you look around throughout the history of the world, how governments slide into tyranny is they pass vague laws and then they can interpret them any number of different ways to imprison good people. So as a result, there's a famous saying that you learn in law school, which is the fact that the U.S. justice system is predicated on the notion that we would rather let 10 guilty men go free than to imprison one innocent man. That's in essence the common law grounding of the rule of lenity. It's saying that, look, if you have an ambiguous law, if you have an ambiguous statute, the interpretation goes maximally to the defendant's favor. Reasonably, has to be reasonable, but the tie goes to the runner here, or the interpretation goes to the defendant. So there's obviously going to be a massive ambiguity question of, well, was it lawful or was it not during this stretch of time? Now, according to the Illinois law enforcement entity that spoke up, again, linked in the description box below, to them this is emphatically clear. You were either in possession on January 10th or you were not, or you're in possession the day before January 10th or you were not. Black and white, nothing to talk about here. And I'll give the devil their due. There's something to that, because the rule of lenity goes towards interpreting statutes. What we have here is less of a statutory issue, I'm going to get into in a moment, and really more of just an ambiguity of the legal status because we had the federal injunction that came in. So the statute that I would say, if I was an Illinois law attorney, which again, I'm not, is I would say that, look, the statutory construction that we have the rule of lenity on goes to not only the initial statute that dealt with the possession, but also if Illinois is not making the claim that Freedom Week purchases were itself illegal, because they're focused on the possession of their statement, not the purchases again, then if they're acknowledging the fact that the purchases were lawful, then we're also looking at the statutory construction of how injunctions are to be interpreted and implied. So we're going to have overlapping federal as well as state rules and kind of where those two meet, where those waters merge. That's where we're going to get to rule of lenity issues. I know that some of you are probably going to be saying ex post facto punishment. Here's kind of the argument about that, okay? Generally speaking, the whole notion of ex post facto punishment, again, tyranny bad. Let's start at the headwaters. Tyranny bad. We don't want the government to say, or some king or queen to say, you know, look, I'm going to pass a law today to punish everybody who did this yesterday, and then I'm going to charge and imprison them for something that they did prior to the enactment of the law. That's a great way to find yourself in tyranny. I'm not sure exactly if we have an ex post facto issue here because it's not like the Illinois legislature enacted a new law. Really what we have is we are going to have an enforcement problem from law enforcement about how are they going to get into this. And again, I think this is really going to hedge more on the rule of lenity, but at the end of the day, this game is really just underway. I think there's a really good chance that this particular set of laws and this whole constellation of issues arising out of Illinois, this may very well be the ground that gets us a ruling on these so-called assault weapon bans from the U.S. Supreme Court. We've, of course, already done another video talking about how a U.S. Supreme Court justice has intervened in the other batch of lawsuits coming out of the Northern District Court of Illinois. Link to that in the description box below. Be sure to check that out. As always, guys, thank you for supporting the channel. Please click like, subscribe, comment what you think is coming out of this. if you're in Illinois on Freedom Week, obviously be careful about what you post up in the comment field below. I don't need anybody creating evidence that can be used against themselves. I don't want this video to be an exhibit in a prosecution in Illinois. So just be careful about all that kind of stuff again. But guys, I mean, my support goes out to my friends south of the Cheddar Wall in Illinois. As always, please also take a moment to subscribe if you've not already done so, and make sure you don't miss any other future content coming out from the channel, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.